Watch this lesson to learn how to read chord charts and learn the simple differences between major and minor chords. Here's an example of a chord chart. Chord charts are a quick and easy way to see how to play a guitar chord. A chord chart will show you which notes to play, which notes not to play, and it will even tell you which fingers to use for which notes. The first thing to notice on a chord chart is the chord name. Right here at the top of this chord chart, you can see that it's an A minor chord. The capital letter A with the small m beside it tells us that this is the A minor chord. If it was an A major chord, you would see the capital letter A without a small m beside it. You can see the difference here. Here's the A minor chord chart, and here's the A major chord chart. So the name of the chord is at the top of the chord chart, and below the name of the chord, you'll see a thick black line with square edges going from side to side. This thick black line with square edges represents the nut of the guitar. The 5 thin lines going from side to side represent the frets, and the 6 thin lines going up and down represent the guitar strings. The line on the far left is the big E string, and the line on the far right is a small E string. So from left to right, the guitar strings are big E, A, D, G, B, and little e. When looking at a chord chart, you're looking at it as if your guitar is on a stand facing you and the head of your guitar is pointed up toward the ceiling. Here's an example showing what I mean. The black dots on the chord chart show you where to place your fingers. Sometimes instead of black dots, you'll see a really thick black line with rounded edges. That really thick black line with rounded edges is telling you to fret every note that the line covers using just one finger. You can see an example of this with the F major chord. You would fret every single string of the first fret with just one finger. Back to the A minor chord. You can see here that to play the A minor chord, you place a finger on the second fret of the D string. Another finger goes on the second fret of the G string, and one more finger goes on the first fret of the B string. The numbers at the bottom of each one of these lines will tell you which finger to use for which note. So we'll use our second finger on the second fret of the D string, our third finger on the second fret of the G string, and our first finger on the first fret of the B string. So that tells us what to do with 3 of the 6 guitar strings. Now for the other 3 strings. Right below the name of the chord, you'll see 1 X and 2 O's. If you see an X above a line, that's telling you not to play that string. If you see an O above a line, that's telling you to play the open string. In other words, an O means you should play that string without any fingers touching it. So let's go through how to play the A minor chord from the big E string to the little E string. First, do not play the big E string. Play the open A string, play the second fret of the D string using your second finger, play the third fret of the G string using your third finger, play the first fret of the B string using your first finger, and play the open small E string. Here's how the A minor chord looks and sounds. Let's look at one more example, the D major chord. Looking at the top of the chord chart, you can see that it's a D major chord because of the capital letter D. If there was a small m after the letter D, that would make it a D minor chord, like this. This is the D major chord, and you can see by the 2 X's that the big E string and the A string are not played. The O tells you that the D string is played open. You can see from the black dot on the next line that you need to fret the second fret of the G string. If you look at the bottom of that line, you can see that the second fret of the G string is played using your second finger. Looking at the black dot on the next line, you can see that you need to play the third fret of the B string. If you look at the bottom of that line, you can see that the third fret of the B string is played using your third finger. Looking at the black dot on the line on the far right, you can see that you need to fret the second fret of the small E string. If you look at the bottom of that line, you can see that the second fret of the small E string is played using your first finger. Here's how the D major chord looks and sounds. One more chord chart that I want to show you is the B minor chord. Look at the extra thick rounded black line on this B minor chord chart. That line is telling you that one finger is laid across the second fret of every string except for the big E string. Don't worry if this doesn't make complete sense to you right now. You'll get lots of practice reading chord charts, and soon this will feel easy for you. One last thing I want to talk about is the difference between major and minor chords. Major chords are happy sounding chords. Minor chords sound kind of sad. If I see the capital letter G on its own, then I know it's a G major chord. If I see the capital letter G with a small m beside it, then I know it's a G minor chord. Chords are usually named by the lowest pitched note in the chord. For example, this is the G major chord. The lowest note is on the 3rd fret of the big E string. This is a G note. For another example, this is the A minor chord chart again. The lowest note is the open A string. That's an A note. Don't worry about knowing the notes on the guitar neck right now. You do not need to know the notes of the guitar neck to be great at playing and changing chords or to play songs. You also do not need to know the theory behind what makes a major chord major and what makes a minor chord minor. For now, just practice reading these chord charts. Know the difference between the names of major and minor chords, and remember that major chords sound happy and minor chords sound sad.